It's my pleasure to welcome a good friend of mine, Congressman Chris Roy from Texas. Chris, for God's sakes. Chip Roy from Texas. Chip, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, Mark. Chris is by far the nicest name that's not my real name that I've been called lately.
Yeah, likewise. But anyway, that's funny. Chip, you guys in the House, you pass a bill, which is what you're supposed to do, a single appropriation bill.
Right.
To get money to the state of Israel, which is an extremist right now. You're saying we're going to offset it with this ridiculous money that goes for 87,000 IRS agents to harass Americans. There's no time for that. And then you and your party are accused of playing politics. Biden says he's going to veto it. Schumer wants to block it. McConnell wants to block it. Whether it's Ukraine or 1,000 other things, you want to go from about $14.5 billion, and they want to spend over $100 billion, correct?
No, that's exactly right. Now, first of all, if Biden opposes it and Schumer opposes it, and if McConnell opposes it, man, it must be the most righteous thing you could possibly be doing.
So true.
He came in, and he did a very good thing right out of the gate, sending over Israel standalone, paid for out of a pot of money set aside to expand the IRS to harass the American people, like you just described. Only in Washington would people choose the IRS over Israel and try to blame us for doing something to help Israel while making sure it's paid for and that we're not making our government worse. Look, the people of Israel need our support and help. They're our friends and our allies. They're being attacked viciously, violently, barbarically, as you have covered ad infinitum on your show. But you can't do it enough because of it's unspeakable the kinds of things that are going on. But it's not just that, Mark, and you know it and I know it. It is in our national security interest as America to have a strong Israel holding the line against these forces of terror, these forces of evil. And it is good for us. It is a good use of dollars for us to invest and help and support Israel hold that line, particularly when it's pushing back on Iran effectively. Mm-hmm. So I think we ought to hold the line. I'm encouraging Speaker Johnson, don't blink. We all want to get that money to Israel on the double, but not at the expense of doing things the right way. Don't let them roll us. We'll get this done, I think, in the near couple of weeks. But I think we need to hold the line, demonstrating that we're going to be serious about how we do this and push on Schumer and Biden and call their bluff. And that's going to head right into the whole continuing resolution debate over the next 10 days.
Mm-hmm. Very, very true. Meanwhile, Biden allows the spigot to remain open to get money, the Iranians to get money for their oil. The money keeps flowing into UNRWA, the UN operation.
Yep.
The money goes into Gaza, and these 4 billionaires, the Daily Mail has written about, who run the place from Qatar and Turkey, they have their own private jets. I mean, billionaires. They're the ones who leech the money off of the people there. I mean, isn't Biden doing all the wrong things in the Middle East?
Yeah, totally. And I'm glad you mentioned that, obviously, about UNRWA, which is a United Nations program that has been funding the Palestinians for years directly, not to mention all of the money that is, backdooring into the Palestinians by way of all the support we're giving, or that ends up helping Iran. In this case, as you just articulated, the lack of sanctions allowing them to make literally $40, $50, $60 billion in revenue from selling oil to China. And we're allowing that to occur, not to mention all of the other ways in which we are sending money to the United Nations. And then you have the United Nations vote against Israel, vote to side with Hamas. And moral clarity matters right now. And we need to hold the line on this. And we're trying to tell our appropriators and other people. I was on a thread today with one of my colleagues, and the colleague was saying, well, but I don't know. I don't know if we can cut the UN. I mean, I don't know that they'll send the right signal around the world. Send the right signal? What is funding an organization that is putting all of these militant countries on their so-called Human Rights Council, and then they're literally voting against Israel and in favor of Hamas? Why are we giving them $12 billion a year, Mark? You know what the biggest thing was? Fine. We don't need to use the IRS to pay for it. Let's just cut our funding to the UN and give it to Israel. Because you know what? That would be a far better use of that money. The
Democrat Party, I mean, you're there, you watch them. And even when you're not there, you can still see them. They have a very big chunk of their base, and it's a growing chunk of their base that is flat out anti-Semitic, don't they?
Yeah, 100%. And it really is disturbing. And there's a side part of this conversation about TikTok and China and the pushing of this entire narrative. And it's purposeful, and it is anti-Jewish, it is anti-Christian, it is anti-American, it is anti-freedom, it is anti-Western civilization. And the vast majority of these young Democrats, all these universities, are all having this push through, and they're advancing this radical ideology. And by the way, Mark, we keep funding this stuff. We keep funding the universities that are allowing this to seed. We keep funding the programs that are doing it, and we shouldn't do it. And that's a big part of the whole fight this year with the speakers and the appropriations process and constraining and cutting spending so that we can advance actual policies that are good for this country rather than undermining it. But that undercurrent of anti-Semitism, it's real. We're seeing it play out on the streets. We saw all of these supposed pro-Palestinian, i.e. pro-Hamas, i.e. pro-terrorism, i.e. anti-Israel, i.e. anti-Semitic individuals climbing the fence at the White House, that are, and this is happening all across the country. And we need to tamp this out. I mean, look, free speech is free speech. You can't go around engaging, by the way, in violent behavior and violating our laws in the process. And you're up there siding with terrorist organizations that are enemies of our state. They are enemies of the United States. And by the way, this is the line that Rashida Tlaib has crossed. Everybody with half a brain and open eyes knows exactly what we have with respect to Rashida Tlaib and her anti-Semitic rhetoric, her anti-Israel rhetoric, and frankly, let's be blunt, her anti-American rhetoric. I mean, on October 8th, okay, we're literally just getting the news accounts of some of the most barbaric attacks I've ever seen, with babies getting beheaded, with babies getting put in ovens, with rapes, with murders, with people being pulled out of cars and getting shot, all the stuff that we all know how horrible it was to see, and still going on. And we had her try to come out and say, oh, this is just resistance. Hold on a second. You're trying to defend that kind of activity as, quote, resistance to, quote, apartheid, when Israel has been on those lands for millennia, when the United States of America was deeply involved with ensuring that Israel got her lands back in 1948, directly after the most horrid acts in the history of mankind and what we saw unfold in the Holocaust or World War II. Now you've got Rashida Tlaib, who's out there supporting that kind of rhetoric and then saying that America is at fault if we fund Israel, that effectively we're funding that continued, quote, cycle of violence, I think she said. Basically, she's saying we're at fault. America's at fault. Israel's at fault, not Hamas. And importantly, obviously, she has used multiple times, most notably on Friday, this language from the river to the sea, which is not a very subtle dog whistle for saying we want to see Israel wiped off the face of the map. This is a step well beyond the kind of rhetoric that we can, safely place into, the kind of free speech and free thinking, free speech and debate that you and I, as defenders of the Constitution, want to protect. But remember, it's an honor and a privilege to be an elected member of Congress. And Congress can determine to censure our members, our colleagues. And Rashida Tlaib deserves to be censured. I believe she will be censured. Language is getting developed, and I believe bills were filed today. I had a hand in some of that. I won't get ahead of that yet, but hopefully we can get that done. But just for the record, the reason I voted to table a resolution last week, was because, with all due respect to its author, it was flawed. It had language in it defining something as an insurrection that is plainly not an insurrection, which has legal consequences, as you know, with respect to some of our fellow Americans involved in the January 6th issue and some of the litigation, and even President Trump, who is now being wrongly targeted in states as being disqualified under the 14th Amendment insurrection language. So my main point here is, it matters how you draft these things, and we want to get this done and get it 218 votes. So I'm working on it. I hope we'll get it done this week. It needs to happen. It just has to be done the right way.
Do you know, and I don't, that's why I'm asking you, the Democrats have a growing group of American haters, Marxists, of Islamist supporters, and I would say it's almost in the 24 numbers now. Do you know of anyone among your colleagues, Republicans, who have that kind of mindset? Anyone?
I am unaware of a single soul in the Republican Party who has anywhere near that kind of a mindset. I really don't. You've got such obvious vitriol being directed towards Israel and in favor of terrorist sympathizer, terrorist enemies, actual terrorists, as we see unfolding here with Hamas. And I can't even put it into words, Mark. I mean, what we're seeing unfold around this country. And it is incumbent upon us to stand up and stand athwart that vitriol, because it's being directed at our Jewish brothers and sisters, but it's even bigger than that. You know that, right? This is an attack at our very way of life. Those of us who believe in Western civilization, this is a direct assault on our values and our belief in Western civilization.
It's so unbelievable to me, and I really do think we need to start defunding these universities and colleges. I mean, we have state legislatures. Many 100%. Of them are Republican. They need to take steps now. The federal level, same thing with these various grant programs. Student loans. I bet a whole bunch of these people got a student loan relief, quote unquote, unconstitutionally from Joe Biden. And
no question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no question. And Mark, this is so important for all your listeners out there, because you're going to hear so many Republicans say, Chip, why are you so concerned about discretionary spending? It's only about 25% of the total budget. Why are you so wound up about it? Number one, if you can't cut the Department of Education or a weaponized DOJ, you think you're going to go deal with it, of how to make Social Security or Medicare solvent? No. Second thing, why are you funding the bureaucrats who are at war with your way of life? Because that's what you're doing. You're funding student loans, Department of Education, a bunch of education bureaucrats teaching your kids that America is evil, God doesn't exist, Western civilization is bad, that Israel is an apartheid state. You're funding that garbage. Stop it. That's the whole point. That's why we're fighting on all this discretionary spending. Everybody needs to know that this whole fight this year about the spending levels and the speakers' battles, to get us on appropriations committee, to get conservatives on the rules committee, is to call their bluff. Because I literally in the rules committee today, and this is a little bit in the weeds, but it's important to understand. We called their bluff because they're saying, Chip, you in the Freedom Caucus, you guys were trying to lie and change the deal when we had under the debt deal in Memorial Day. I said, hold on. The bills we're passing right now are within a few $1 billion, literally out of $1.6 trillion, within a few $1 billion of the debt deal, a little under, right near it. But you know what the dirty secret is? They wanted to use all of these rescissions pots of money. They wanted to go take other pots of money, and they wanted to go backfill and grow those programs. And we're calling their bluff on it. And that's what they're getting tired of. The appropriators are biting back. The swamp is biting back, just like they did with Trump. But we're going to keep fighting because we've got to defund these tyrannical bureaucrats at war with our way of life.
You know, I understand why the Democrats don't support taking one penny out of these organizations, because they back their agenda. The centralization of government, the control of the individual through Washington bureaucrats and agencies and all the rest of it. I will never understand the Republicans, and I'll be very specific. Mitch McConnell, for 15 years, the longest-serving leader of either party in the Senate, has been a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. More often than not, he throws in with Schumer and throws against the conservatives in the House. Don't you think?
100%. What we're seeing happen in the Senate last week in particular, where you saw Republican senators go down and attack, target, and lie about Tommy Tuberville's courageous stand of sitting up there and saying, why are taxpayer dollars being used to perpetuate abortion tourism? And you had Joni Ernst and you had a bunch of Republican senators go to the floor and attack him. That is the McConnell brigade over in the Senate, who are all too happy to go to war with conservative Republicans. Because,
hold on, let me explain this, though. Yeah. Biden comes in, and by fiat, the executive branch tells the Department of Defense to use taxpayer dollars to fly women in the military who are pregnant at taxpayer dollars for abortions. You guys in Congress didn't pass anything. You weren't consulted about it. He just did it. And considering the money that we need for the military and all the rest of it, and their attempt to use the military for wokeism and social change and everything else. Here you have a senator from Alabama that said, the only power I have is to put the brakes on the Pentagon that did this on its own when it comes to what they really care about, and that's one promotion after another. And Joe Biden can end this in 2 seconds if he would withdraw his unconstitutional executive order, or their policy, I should say, at the Defense Department, but he won't. So they pile on Tuberville, and the media pile on him, and Republicans pile on him in the Senate to claim that he's undermining the Pentagon and our security. Do I have that about right?
You have it exactly right. And in one added element, you had United States senators, Republicans, go to the floor of the Senate and effectively lie by saying that, we're just telling you, Coach Tuberville, we just want to vote right now. Let's do a vote. And they would ask for consent to call up one of these nominees. And Coach Tuberville would say, no, I do not consent to that. And they would say, see, you're blocking it. We just wanted to have a vote. That's unanimous consent. That's not a vote. Literally all Coach Tuberville is demanding is that they actually do their job and vote. But they say, no, that will take too long. And the point here is he's taking a stand against this tyranny of the bureaucracy, funding a policy and a program antithetical to your beliefs, my beliefs, and the beliefs of the majority of the American people, that we shouldn't fund abortion tourism with taxpayer dollars. Now multiply that times 1,000, the programs across the entire federal government. In terms of education, the Department of Justice weaponized against Scott Smith out in Loudoun County in Leesburg. You know that well. All of the weaponization of Department of Justice against the former president, against people like Mark Houck in Philadelphia. All of the use of education department and all of the DEI and all of the critical race theory, all of that stuff is being done. And Republicans sit back and go, oh, Chip, isn't that cute? You want to cut these bureaus. You can't do that. That will harm a program. No, the American people are tired of funding that stuff when we have a $2 trillion deficit. And we need, Republicans to stand up and fight. And thankfully, the Freedom Caucus is doing it, and I hope Mike Johnson will hold the line in the House.
It's just incredible how they push their agenda. They do it in violation of the law. They do it with their executive orders or regulations, and everybody's happy they change it, and some guy stands up against it, and they just try to destroy him. They do the same to you. They do the same to me. They do the same to any constitutional conservative that actually cares about this country. Look how they're reporting on Israel and Hamas. Look at CNN. It's grotesque. Look at the Washington Post and the New York Times. They are grotesque. Look at MSNBC. They don't tell the truth, and they're not going to tell the truth about this.
Here's the upside, though. I'll close with this. You know why I have a lot of hope and a lot of faith is because of you, people out there telling the truth. Also, young Americans like Riley Gaines, who just said no to all this garbage. And she said, you know what? I'm not swimming against a dude. Scott Smith, like I talked about in Leesburg. There are Americans who are waking up and tired of it. I just hope Republicans will represent them instead of the swamp in making decisions here in town. And we're trying to fight that.
Now, you have a re-election campaign. If people want to help you, where do they go?
Well, thanks, Mark. Chiproy.com, chiproy.com. Any financial support is grateful. Yes, we're in election cycle. We need to make sure that we, go strong and really appreciate it. And chiproy.com, or my Twitter account is ChiproyTX, ChiproyTX. So
you don't like the name Chris I gave you, huh? Or you do like it?
No, like I said, it's better than most names I got. Let me get one last thing. I was in New Braunfels, Texas, which I represent, near San Antonio, last night. My dad's 81st birthday yesterday. And
nice.
We were out, and hundreds of people coming up to us and saying thank you. No one complaining. They are so thankful we're fighting for them. And I tell them, look, we're just getting started. It takes a while to drain the swamp. You saw President Trump try. He got some things done, and he got bit. And then he tried, and then he got bit some more. We're doing the same thing. It takes a little bit of time, but have faith. We got to do it.
100%. All right, my brother. Take care. God bless you.
All right. God bless you, Mark. Take care.
Take care of yourself.